So in our practice of Trikaya Buddhism, we are practicing this way of life of exploring awareness, of looking at truth from many different angles. And we allow those explorations to in turn expand awareness, and we become more and more deeply enamored by how magical and mystical this process of life really is. And one of the ways that we kind of help our mind grasp the immensity is different concepts, different lists. Like if you look at Tibetan Buddhism, they love lists. There are many, many lists of everything. But even if you go back even further to Buddha Shakyamuni, he still had his lists that he liked. You know, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path. And one of these lists, if you will, is a description of what we are at our core, our base. And that is the 5 aggregates. So this is a description of what we are and how it all works, which is what we do on the path, right? We examine and explore and discover, how is this working? What is happening? We don't really go into the why of things, because when we just chase down why, what we're really doing is just feeding an egoic description. And eventually we will come across something that challenges our why and will send us into disarray until we come up with another explanation of why that will satisfy us for a little while. So if you find yourself spinning out ever, look at your mental process. And if you're stuck on a why, like, why is this happening? It's a very common question right now. Stop yourself for a minute and to say, well, maybe I don't need to know why. Maybe I can't really know why. But I can know what. I can examine exactly what is here. And I can also look at how it is interacting and how it is working. So one of the ways that we look at what is happening and how it is working is we have this concept of the 5 aggregates. So let me share it for you on Zoom. So these 5 aggregates are form, also called name and form, feelings or senses, perception, mental formations or volition, and consciousness or understanding or cognition. So in this, when we first examine the 5 aggregates, we do it from a very individualistic point of view. We look at, well, this is what has created me and my body and my being, because it's easier. So if we look at form, we also call it name and form, because form isn't just solid matter. It includes the energy side. So basically anything that you can name is part of form, this aggregate of form. And it's just one strand that makes up our entire being. And it has its own karma. So our physical body has a genetic karma to it based on how our genes came together. It creates a certain pattern. Now we have also the feelings or senses, our hearing, our sight, taste, touch. I know there's more. All of our different senses that are kind of just collecting information. That's another strand that wraps into our existence. And then we have perception. So we have this, not only we have this feeling or sensing of light hitting our eye and creating shapes, now it creates a perception. And that perceptual filter is moldable. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So the next one is these mental formations or volition. So mental formations are very fascinating because in our mind, our thinking mind, we can recreate any of the senses. So we don't have to actually see the color orange to see it. We can see it through our mental formations. We can just imagine. We can smell cookies, even though there's no actual cookies happening. And then mental formations have a movement to them, because now that I've mentioned cookies, then all of a sudden that triggers other things, and now we have this desire, this mental volition, like, oh, I want cookies now. And then we have consciousness or understanding or cognition. So we have the mental formation of cookies, and then that interacts with an understanding of cookies are yummy. At least I think so. And then that ties into our perception, and now perception is winding all these aggregates together. And as we consider this concept of cookies, that again we haven't actually seen in the physical, we haven't actually sensed it with our beings at this point. We're just still in these mental formations, playing with consciousness, and now our perception gets involved, and maybe we've gained a lot of weight. So now we have this perception of, oh, I'm torn because I really like cookies, but they're full of sugar and fat, and they're going to make me gain even more weight. So maybe I shouldn't have the cookies, but no, I really want the cookies. And see, now we're starting to create this whole world. And depending on what we want more, going back to that volition, we might say, well, I really want to lose weight more than I want the cookie. Or it might be a different day where you're like, no, I really want the cookie more than I want to lose weight. And then that causes us to act and go and actually find the cookie in form, and then eat the cookie and taste it. So this is a very fast example of how these 5 aggregates are spinning to create you all the time. And it gets more complicated because it's more than just cookies, right? There's all these other things happening right now in this present moment. And every single one of these 5 aggregates has a history. It has a they're already in motion. So there's already a thread of karma that's propelling each one of these 5 aggregates through a habitual pattern. So I want you just to kind of sit with that immensity for just a moment of you. Now, every single one of these aggregates is undergoing change. They're all impermanent. So our body, our form, all the things that we can name, are not static. They're undergoing change. Every cell within our body is undergoing a metamorphosis right now. Our blood is moving. Air is moving through our lungs. We have thousands of different feelings, different sensations that are arising and falling away in moments. Like right now in this room, we have the trash truck outside. We have the fans going. We have the light streaming through the window. I have the feeling of the cushion underneath my body. I have the taste of the mint I ate earlier. So all these sensations are arising and falling away. And then we're perceiving all of these different forms, these different sensations. They're all coalescing into a certain view of the world, which then either supports our mental formations that are on their own little cycle, little spin, what we're thinking about, what we're concerned about, what we think should be, what we're inspired to do, is all meeting this present moment of perception. And then we're cognizing it. We're understanding it from a certain point of view from within the framework of these 5 aggregates. We develop an idea of, oh, this is who I am. This is what I am. And this funny thing happens is we want it to just stay the same. We have this quest within us, which I don't know where it came from, if it's societal programming or if it's just part of our own programming, that this sense of we want to figure out, well, who am I really? And we want a fixed answer. But I'm sorry, there isn't one. Because you are these 5 aggregates that are spinning and winding together and constantly being created and destroyed all at the same time. And now we're still just talking about you, this one little body, this one little bundle of aggregates that's having this experience. That's ever changing. Now, if we zoom out a little bit, let's just allow our perception to open up a little bit. And if we look at form, we start to recognize that, oh, wait, it's not just my body that exists. There's other bodies that exist. There's a whole room here that exists. Oh, wait, there's a whole planet. And then there's stars and other planets. All of that everything that we can name, is also this aggregate of form that is coming into being, along with our individualistic little body. But yet, if we look at it through this concept of the 5 aggregates, we can start to see that we are no different than all of the other form that exists. If we break it down to these essentials, we're not separate from the stars or the planet or the other bodies or the chairs that we're sitting on or the room that we're in. And if we keep going through the list, everything feels, everything senses. It may not be in the way that we sense and feel, but there's been scientists who like to study such things, and they've discovered that there are trees that sense when a giraffe is eating them, and then they actually put out a signal to the other trees that are near them, and the other trees respond, and they release a chemical that makes their leaves taste bitter to the giraffe. So there's this aliveness, this interaction, this feeling and sensing and perceiving and mental formations and consciousness that exists in other life forms. And that's just one that has been observed. So these feelings, everything feels, everything senses, everything perceives, everything has a mental formation or a volition. Life is always seeking life. Again, it might not be in the way that humans seek life, it may not be the way that humans think, but there's a process happening of these same aggregates, and the same with consciousness or understanding or cognition. And even the rocks on the ground have consciousness. We might not be able to perceive and understand at that level, but if anyone who's very sensitive has ever gone into a crystal shop, there's certain rocks, these little crystals that are there, that will be like, no, take me with you. Ever you've been out walking and then suddenly you've just had this overwhelming urge to pick up a rock and move it somewhere? That's that consciousness of that rock reaching out and intermingling with the consciousness of your being and having a conversation. So we like to think that these 5 aggregates are just a descriptor of our own being, but really they are a descriptor of all of existence. If we allow ourselves to expand and see. And when we do this, when we let our mind stretch, we start to tap into just pure awareness. Instead of being stuck trying to define and segregate, we start to relax a little bit, we start to release a little bit, and simply become aware of awareness itself. Not as something that is separate, but that which we are. And these illusory walls of separation start to dissolve. We start to feel that interconnection, that interbeing. I love, that's a beautiful term that Thich Nhat Hanh came up with, interbeing. Where as we move and experience life, we're doing it in synchronicity with everything else in existence. There's a harmonious flow that is happening all the time. But what happens with us is our perception collapses down, our awareness shrinks, and we become hyper-focused on the individual. Because that's where we have this perception of control. Say, well, it's my hand, I can do what I want with it. It's like, well, not always. Talk to somebody with a tremor, their hand's gonna do what it wants to do, all on its own. But we do have influence. We do have this sense of volition. But it's not isolated. It doesn't exist in a vacuum, is what I'm trying to point out. But yet we insist that it must. So we come up with these plans and dreams and schemes. And some of them work out and it's fun, and then we feel like, yes, I did this. And from a certain perspective, then yes, you did that. But really, from a different perspective, it's really the unfolding of awareness, just being aware of awareness. This is the freedom of choicelessness. When you can let go of this insistence that I am somebody. We have this heaviness, that this habitual pattern of defining ourselves. Remember, I said at the beginning, we really want a fixation. We want to know who I am, just lay it out plain and simple, and then this is what I am, and this is how I am, and then it's final, and it's done, and now I know where everything stands, and I'm very comfortable with that. But if you want to know truth, if you want to be aware, which is what we do here, then relax a little bit. Relax into the uncertainty of it all. And know that there is this ocean of existence and non-existence. And it is coming into being and then going into non-being. And we ourselves are that. But then we have these bodies. We have these habitual patterns. We have these perceptions and feelings, and we have this limited understanding. And what happens is, as we're flowing in this beautiful river of existence, we get caught in a little eddy. So along the shore, there'll be like some branches or debris, and the water will just catch us, and we'll be spinning in this little whirlpool eddy on the edge of the shore. And we'll have a grand adventure as this individual concept, this individual being, where we think we are somebody, that we have very important things to do that must be done. And we play this role. And from one perspective, that role is vital and it's important. And it allows this flow of existence to unfold in beautiful ways. So yes, it is important that you do things, because you have form, you have feelings and perception and volition and consciousness. You have these you are these aggregates that have weaved together into this very unique and powerful being. And yes, you have things to do as this being. This being has things to do. It has a purpose. It has come into being in response to what has come before. These threads of karma hold this particular collection of aggregates into your unique being. And you have something to do here, right now. And there is a part of you that will do it. Despite what you think, despite what you fight and struggle, you will do what you are here to do. But as we go on this river and we get caught in this little eddy, this little whirlpool on the edge, it's like this filter, this blinder comes over us, and we can only see the little whirlpool, and we forget all of which we are, and we become obsessed with this one thing. And we often fight and struggle and doubt and go through horrible suffering. Until we finally have done whatever it is that we needed to do in that little whirlpool. And again, from my perspective, it will be done, whether or not you go along with it or not. It's just, will you suffer through it, or will you enjoy the ride? Will you be open to what is happening? Will you go on the roller coaster screaming in terror or laughing in glee? Because we're all on this roller coaster. We're all wandering through this amusement park. And there is a certain sense of choice, which, I'll talk more about on another day. But really, for me, what free will or choice comes down to is we can point our awareness, point our focus of our mind towards light and truth, or away from it. And that's it. We like to make it much, much more complicated than that. So as we're caught in this little eddy of confusion, we always have the choice to look for the light, to look for the brightness. And that will make the ride much more enjoyable in my experience. And you will eventually come out of that eddy and you'll rejoin, the debris will break up and you'll be back in the flow of existence as this bundle of aggregates, until one day the journey of those aggregates is done, and then that karma that bound them together will come unraveled and we dissolve. The form falls away, the perceptions dissolve, and then we can speculate what happens after that. I like the stories of the bardos that the Tibetans have given us through the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But again, even those stories of rebirth, there is no fixed self. There is no fixed persona. And when we cling to this notion of a fixed self, it creates immense suffering, because right before us we feel it and we sense it and we know it, that everything is changing, everything is impermanent. That even though we really want the sense of a fixed self, this fixed persona, it's not there. It's just a fleeting idea. And what's really funny is if we were to create this fixed persona, okay, this is who I am, and then we write down like who we think we are, and then we live our lives and we think we're living it according to that persona. If we were to go back and revisit that description, we'll discover that we're not who we thought we were. We've changed. We've grown and developed in sometimes very unexpected ways. And honestly, that's a very beautiful part of existence. So as you contemplate these 5 aggregates, as you allow your awareness to stretch out into each one of them, allow yourself to feel and experience that interbeing with all of existence. And allow yourself to trust this coming into existence and non-existence, this pulsation of life. And when you're feeling confused and uncertain, allow yourself to relax into the confusion and the uncertainty. And again, look for the light, what feels the brightest. And when we move towards that, there is this sense of purpose, this sense of completion, a sense of fulfillment, simply by allowing our awareness to connect with that which is brightest. Because there's a recognition of our Buddha nature in that moment. There's a recognition of what we truly are is, in fact, that light that is always shining, always moving us. And not just us, but everyone and everything else. So, does that make sense to you guys? A little bit. I know we went a little bit deep there, so allow yourselves to just let it filter into your awareness. And of course, have a sense of humor about everything. You know, there's a silliness to life that is easily overlooked when we get very serious about knowing what's what and how it is. But remember, there's a playfulness, there's a dance, and it's fun. Even when we're not getting the answers that we thought we needed. If we kind of release that clinging, we start to open to that sense of playfulness and that fun and that dance of life. And so it's not what I thought it was, it's actually better. So let's meditate.